Welcome to D-Feedback. In this tutorial, we'll look at the basic setup for the recommended computer and audio interface hardware options from the Alpha Labs website, namely the Option 1 and the Option 2 Pro machines, as of mid-September 2025 and on. Be sure to read through the FAQ on the website for the latest details about D-Feedback and these hardware options, and see our other videos for instructions on how to update older machines to the latest global settings, or to reset your machine to factory defaults. To get started, you'll need a screen, preferably a regular monitor with an HDMI connection, and a keyboard and mouse or trackpad. Connect these to any of the available ports. If you ordered the recommended Focusrite interface, connect it to the computer using the original USB cable that came with the device. It doesn't matter which USB connection you use. Some larger interfaces also require a dedicated power cable, so make sure it is connected and that the device is turned on. The first thing to know about the machines is that they turn on as soon as you plug in the power. This is true even after a power loss. The machine will automatically turn on again when the power is reinstated. Note that to turn off the machine, briefly press the power button and wait for the machine to fully shut down. Do not press and hold the power button unless for some reason you need to force the machine to shut down, which is functionally the same as a sudden power loss, and in rare cases can cause file corruption. So the best practice is to have a battery backup power supply. It is not necessary to have a true online or double conversion uninterruptible power supply, as the native power converters for these machines have internal capacitors that can bridge the short gap in time during which most conventional battery backup systems switch from regular power to battery power during a power loss, usually around 10 milliseconds. So now, turn on your computer if you haven't already. The OS does not have a password. It will auto-log in, and the app called VST Host will auto-launch because there is a shortcut for it in the startup shell. Connect the computer to the internet. You can use either a hardwired connection through the Ethernet port or a Wi-Fi connection. Be aware that the computer has no protection beyond the basic built-in firewall. All antivirus and other malware detectors have been disabled to preserve CPU capacity, so we recommend staying connected to the internet as little as possible or necessary to complete these tasks. During normal usage, we recommend that you not be connected to the internet. However, some users may want to control the computer remotely, even during normal usage. For this, we recommend AnyDesk. Simply install AnyDesk and then use its unique address to connect to it from your LAN or anywhere in the world from the AnyDesk app on your local device. Inside VST Host, you will see the D-Feedback plugin. For the Option 1 machine, you will see one D-Feedback plugin by default, and for the Option 2 Pro machine, you will see 4. Pick any one of them, and click on the dial icon next to the blue info button to open the UI. The plugin will pass audio in trial mode, with periodic mutes in the output, until activated. To activate, first be sure that you do not have any extra USB sticks or external hard drives connected to the computer that are not a permanent part of your machine setup, as this could cause them to get included in the license fingerprint of your machine and cause problems later if they come and go. Click on Show Menu, License Management, and then enter the 8-digit license and the 8-digit password you received after purchasing a license through the website. Then click Activate. After a few seconds, the plugin will activate, and you can close and reopen VST Host. If you are not able to establish an internet connection, there is an offline activation process, which you can begin after clicking Activate 3 times and following the prompts. Please watch our other videos on how to fully activate using this offline method. The next step is to get audio through your interface. At the time of the making of this video, the recommended interface is a Focusrite Scarlett Gen 3, using driver version 4.102.4. Open Focusrite Control. It may prompt you to perform a firmware update on your interface. Go ahead and do this. It may also prompt you to register your product and create a Focusrite account. This is your choice, but it isn't required for D-Feedback purposes. Once any firmware updates are done, the interface will connect. For the smaller interfaces such as Solo, 2i2, and 4i4, the only settings to be concerned about are the input settings, such as whether to retain the 48-volt phantom power state of the inputs after a power cycle. For larger units, such as 8i6 and 8i8, You need to make sure that in the Output section, the associated playback output sources are selected for each pair of outputs, so that outputs 1 and 2 have playback 1 and 2 as the source, and outputs 3 and 4 have playback 3 and 4 as the source, and so on. Don't worry about the sources for the SPDIF and loopback outputs. Those are unused for defeedback purposes. At this point, you can close Focusrite Control. Back in VST Host, select Devices from the menu bar. Then select Wave, and then make sure the input port is set to No Wave, and the output port is set to ASIO, Focusrite USB ASIO, and make sure it is set to 48,000 as the sample rate, and 16 samples as the buffer size. Sometimes it won't let you select the sample rate and buffer size from this window, and you will need to go back to the Devices menu and select ASIO Control Panel, which sometimes takes 2 clicks to open, and then from there, you can set the sample rate and buffer size. Also, be sure that Safe Mode is selected. Then, open Windows System Sound Settings. Select More Sound Settings. Then right-click on the Focusrite device in both the Playback and Record tabs, and disable it, so that the computer doesn't try to send machine-related sounds out that device during use. This will remain in place as long as you use the same interface each time you boot the machine. If you change interfaces, even if changing back to a previously used interface, you will need to go here and disable it again. If you wish, go to Date and Time Settings and select Sync Now so that your master clock is set correctly based on your location. At this point, you can disconnect the internet, unless you wish to download other software or drivers. However, we generally recommend against this. Note that the machines do come with the Yamaha Steinberg driver already installed, so you can connect to the DM3 or DM7 Pro audio consoles directly and patch in defeedback using the USB connection. Simply select the Steinberg ASIO option in the Output Port menu after connecting it to the console when the console was already on. Whether it is a Focusrite interface or a Yamaha console, these audio devices must be turned on first for the computer to automatically reconnect after a power cycle in most cases. Many users decide to download other audio platforms, but we chose VST Host by default because it has very little CPU overhead and it is very reliable due to its simplicity. For those installing or using these machines in situations where they run 24/7, we recommend going into the Task Scheduler library and enabling the pre-configured task called Restart, which performs an automatic restart of the machine at 4 a.m. every night. This helps keep the data buffers refreshed and free of any possible drift and jitter that may accumulate after long periods of use. Feel free to edit the task and set it to 1-week intervals if you like, but we recommend a 24-hour restart for highest stability. Also, you can end, disable, and then delete any other tasks in that list that may have popped up over time. We tried our best to get rid of most of them, but sometimes they sneak up again. They're not necessary for defeedback purposes, and all they do is temporarily hog CPU power. Let's talk about how to use VST Host. Under Performances, select Load. With the Option 1 machine, you will see 3 saved performances. With Option 2 Pro, you will see 10. These are presets for various generic configurations, or specific configurations based on Focusrite hardware options. Consider the Option 1 machine default performance, 1 mono. Here we have engine input 1 going to input 1 of the defeedback plugin, and its output 1 is going to the engine output 1. We can see this by clicking on the chain icon for the defeedback plugin. Here we see the available list of items from which we can choose to patch into the defeedback plugin. The only option in this case is the engine input module, so that has a green checkmark, indicating that we can use it for patching. Click the speaker icon to open the patching page. On the left, we see the 2 available defeedback inputs, and we can select the source for each using the drop-down menus on the right. So in this case, defeedback input 1 is receiving the signal from the engine input 1, and defeedback input 2 is unassigned. In VST Host specifically, plugins that can be stereo are always presented as stereo, and in order to treat them like mono, we simply leave one side unassigned. Defeedback is designed to function as a mono plugin when it sees signal only on one of its inputs. When there is signal through both inputs, it functions as a stereo plugin. However, we do not recommend using a stereo defeedback plugin as a dual mono plugin, where the signal being sent through both sides is uncorrelated, or totally different from, and unrelated to each other. The stereo processing is designed to make sense of correlated stereo signals, in order to maintain the relative phase in stereo imaging and preserve the total dynamic range, while only increasing CPU load a mere bit above that of mono processing. Correlated stereo signals would be things such as choir microphones placed within a few feet of each other. Or perhaps you've got a mono vocal nested within a stereo reverb or feedback field that you'd like to remove. Using it as a dual mono plugin may produce some strange sounding results. If we click on the chain icon for the engine output module, we can see that only D feedback has a green checkmark. And if we open the patch page, we can see that engine output 1 has the D feedback output 1 as its source. Anytime you make any changes to any of these patching assignments, be sure to click OK through all of the windows until they're all gone in order to instate your changes. Note that if we go to Engine and select Configure, the input and output channel assignments are set to -1, which means they will auto-populate with all available interface channels. If for some reason you would like to restrict the number of available input or output channels, you can set the number manually. Also, if you'd like, you can reorder which interface channels go to which engine channels. We recommend not changing these settings unless you have a very specific reason for doing so. Back in Performances, let's load the next one and take a look. We can see an additional module called Sum or DC Blocker. In this case, we don't care about blocking DC, but we do care about its ability to sum pairs of inputs together, such as engine inputs 1 and 2 in this case, so that, for example, on Focusrite interfaces such as the Solo and 2i2, it doesn't matter which input on the interface you choose to use. Both will end up going through the Mono D feedback plugin. We can see this if we open the patching for the plugin. We have the engine inputs selected for use, and then we can see that engine inputs 1 and 2 are assigned as the sources. Now, if we go to the patching for D feedback, we can see that the engine input is no longer selected, but instead, we have selected the summing plugin, and the one available output from the summing plugin is assigned as the source for input 1 of D feedback. Note that when there is only one output from a plugin, such as the summing plugin, the output will be automatically copied to a second output channel, because VST Host is configured by default to think in stereo as a minimum. And then if we look at the patching for the engine output, we see that output 1 of D feedback is being sent to both output 1 and 2 of the engine, so that you can plug into either output of the Focusrite interface, and you'll get the sound from the one mono D feedback plugin. You can see all of this in the performance name. One mono, inputs 1 and 2 summed, outputs 1 and 2 mirrored. And then of course we have a true stereo performance, where engine inputs 1 and 2 go to inputs 1 and 2 of D feedback, which go to engine outputs 1 and 2, just like you would expect. If we look at the option 2 Pro Machine, the various performances are as they describe, with options for combining certain pairs of inputs to make the Focusrite units more convenient to use in many cases, since some users often switch which physical input they plug into, even though they want the associated output channel patching to remain the same. The default performance comes up with 4 mono D feedback plugins. Note that in the patching area, each plugin is identified with a unique number. VST Host always opens with the saved version of the last used performance. So, if we make a change to the items in the environment area and then restart VST Host, it will snap back to the way it was. If we want our changes to stick around, we need to either save over the current performance or save as a new performance. In the rare event that VST Host gets messed up somehow because of a sudden power loss, or you've just dinked around with it too much and want to reset the entire thing, simply delete the VST Host folder on the desktop. Go to Downloads and copy the backup folder there onto the desktop and reopen VST Host. Note that the presets in VST Host for D feedback are assuming that the D feedback plugin is on the desktop and has its original name, dfeedback.vst3, and that there is only one such plugin on the desktop. To update the D feedback plugin, first delete the existing plugin and then download the new version and put it on the desktop. The summing plugin is stored inside the VST Host folder by default, but you can change where any plugins are stored. You will just have to rebuild the environment window by dragging them back in, remaking all your patching, and saving the performance. As of the making of this video, the latest version of D feedback is 1.1.2, which you can see if you open the plugin UI and click Show Menu, About. Note that with the introduction of v1.1.2, updating from previous plugin versions, or downgrading to earlier versions, will require a fresh copy of the latest VST Host folder each time you make the switch, in order to ensure that the plugin populates automatically with the performance presets. Delete the VST Host folders on the desktop and in Downloads. Fresh copies are available for download on our website under the latest update files. Then download the new zip file in accordance with which machine you have. Open the zip file and move the folder to the desktop. Then open VST Host. Make sure Always Ask Before Opening this file is unchecked. Then, close VST Host and make a copy of the folder and place it in the Downloads area as a backup. You'll notice that in the Downloads area, there is also a backup of our approved Focusrite driver version, which you can reinstall if ever the driver gets accidentally updated or corrupted, and it is also available for download on the website. Version 1.1.2 has a strength slider that we recommend leaving at 100%, and it also has a mute button for quick patch-related troubleshooting. If you mute the plugin but you still hear sound, then you have a parallel patch somewhere. You're sending both a copy of the processed and unprocessed sound to your output, and that's bad. Go fix it. In VST Host, on the plugin module itself, mute is in the lower right corner, and in the lower left corner, there's a bypass option as well. But we've noticed that repeatedly using these buttons can result in lingering audio anomalies. So we recommend always restarting VST Host after you're done messing with these buttons during setup or sound check. During normal usage, especially for the Option 1 machine, we do not recommend having a screen, keyboard, mouse, or trackpad connected, because this can sometimes result in audio anomalies. Get yourself all set up with the configuration you want. Then unplug these items and restart the machine so that everything comes up fresh and ready to pass audio in the most stable way possible. Remember to always connect to the internet and deactivate your license by double-clicking Deactivate before sending it in for any repairs, or if you want to migrate the license to another machine. And again, there is an offline option for this as well. Well, that's about it. We really hope you enjoyed feedback, and please, do not hesitate to email us through the website with any questions you may have.